Okay, so now we'll see the first
Well, this
win,
is the third game
the third game.
of this match in Reykjavik, and it happened that well, it's also a story about this game. We'll tell
Okay.
during our demonstration. But here it happened that this game here was the first time that Bobby could beat Spassky. Spassky was until this game was the only player in the world that Bobby didn't win once. Anytime.
Never.
I mean, never.
Okay.
So here it was decisive game because you remember it was already 2-0 for Spassky. I mean, it was the whole story that why and how and so on. The big mistake from Bobby that took in the first game in H2 and he lost a piece. The second game he didn't show up and he lost by forfeit and so on. So finally here the score was 2-0 for the world champion, and Bobby with black had to try to win. If he didn't win, the game was already very unclear. I mean, the match, you see.
Yeah.
So, okay, he has to play for win with black. So, we'll see what happens. Bobby plays Benoni with black. Knight d2. Again, move order, very important. Knight d2 is a little bit tricky because now the best move is knight d7. For instance, if you don't play knight d7, is already clearly better for white. I mean, with the knight in b8, if you play the normal move, bishop g7. After knight c4, you have already a big problem for black here, you see, because the knight has a fantastic position in c4, and he threatens already knight b5 or bishop f4, and this is clearly better for white, you see. So move order is very important, knight d7 instead of bishop g7, because after knight d7, knight c4, you have the possibility to play immediately knight b6, and the game is okay. The game is even. Knight c4, knight b6. Now is no problem for black, you see. But because only like this, yeah. Because if white takes now in b6, is nothing. Queen takes and is okay. Black is all right. Afterwards is a normal position, normal game. So right. So here knight d7, e4, theory. e4, bishop g7, bishop e2, castle, castle. All right. Rook e8. Everything theory. And now, as long as I remember, the best moves considered. Well, here white has many possibilities. He can play very aggressively f4, which is risky. Okay. He can play king h1. He can play f3, or probably the easiest way to do something. I mean, to have a very small edge for white immediately after the opening is to play quietly a4. A4.
A4?
A4, yeah. He controls the squares and white is a little bit better, Yeah, okay. So he played a new move, Queen C2, Spassky. Queen C2. Well, new move. In that period it was new. Now everybody knows it's computer and so, big difference. And here knight H5. Well, in that time, this move was very big surprise because when Spassky was leading 2-0, and to have such a move, knight h5, which accepts the fact that in any normal position you have a worse endgame. The endgame is very bad for black if you arrive in endgame, because you have the double pawns and the weak pawn in d6. But until the endgame, we have a long way to go.
Yes.
So okay, now if white wants to take in h5, he's invited to take in h5. Okay. Spassky had the possibility to play something else here, but was very unclear. f4. It seems f4 is good, but it's very risky, Because here after f4, the possibility is to play bishop d4 check, king h1, and now or queen h4, maybe, or knight d6, the other knight in d6, and it's okay. Is not clear at all, but is good for black, So, of course, he didn't play f4, and he took normally in h5. He took in h5, he took back, and from now on, black has to demonstrate that his plan is all right, I mean, the weakness from h5, he can control the squares and he has counterplay, So now here he played the normal move, knight e5. Now, if he takes in e5, it's probably okay for black because he controls, he takes, and after f4, he has time to give a check in d4, and afterwards a6, and to play on the b file later, you see. It's not clear, very unclear position, but playable. It's possible to play. Okay, he comes normally to e3. It seems that white is a little bit better. He controls the squares. Now, very good move, queen h4. Okay, after queen h4.
But why is very good?
Because he gives the plan, he gives the move for white, and white has to realize, the next plan here. Or you can play aggressively with f4, or you wait a little bit with f3, and then black has time to play bishop d7 and preparing b5, counterplay on the other side, on the queen side, or the way they played in their game after queen h4. So what did he play? Bishop d2, knight g4. After knight g4, now again you have to take the decision. You have to takes, and now bishop f4. Well, it seems again no problem at all for white, you see. Because now if you trade the bishop, you see, it's not good. If you trade the bishop in e5, black has no possibility to play for win. After the bishop takes bishop e5, no?
Yes.
Bishop e5.
Bishop
e5, he takes. First of all, he can take, no? And if the black bishop is very good for black, And now here the simple move f4 gives advantage for white. f4. You have to take probably, and rook takes. And if you come to h5, it's no threat at all. You don't have anything after h3, for instance, And it's clear better. After rook f1, black is probably lost positionally, So, okay. Already no problem at all for white, you see. But queen f6 is very good. And here, in my opinion, Spassky underestimated a little bit black's position and played this move, which is not the best, g3. It was much better to play simply bishop g3. After bishop g3, okay. He threatens afterwards f3, opening the position, and probably the position is more or less okay for white, you see. But after g3, the position is very unclear, and black has very good counterplay, you see, g3. Bishop d7. Now, everything is clear. He wants to play simply b5. If he arrives to b5, it's very good for black. So, of course, white plays a4, but now he's trying to prepare again b6. First of all, b6. b6 very important, because if you play immediately a6, he plays himself a5, and he controls the square, and much more difficult to arrive to b5, So b6. After b6, he wants to play later on a6 and b5. So, okay, rook e1. Why has to play like this? a6. Good. Now, rook e2. Okay. After rook e2, b5. Now, the first important moment here, again. Yeah. So, he could take probably he could take there, take. Rook takes a8, and e5. Yeah. And okay, here is very unclear who is better, because he could take in e5. Bishop takes. Bishop takes is bad, because of rook a1 check and king g2, queen f3 mate.
No, okay.
So it's clear, it's not good,
Yeah.
So white has to be careful also, therefore I tell you that g3 was not good. This was the first moment when Spassky didn't play the best moves, g3. Okay, so he waits. He waits and plays finally here rook e1. Now he's prepared to play e5, But black is controlling, Queen g6 is very good move. He's controlling the diagonal. He's preparing, the counterplay, and white is, again, he's waiting a little bit, and black waits also, rook there. All right. So queen d3. Rook b8. Now he took there, he takes, and normal for very strong grandmaster who understands this position. The best move here is considered the positional b4. Now if you take in b4, normal, after knight a2, white is better. Because if he takes back the pawn, he has control over the squares, and you have some weaknesses, in d6, b5, and so on. And the black bishop from d7 doesn't play for the moment, So therefore, white is okay. But of course, Fischer doesn't take, he plays c4. But he could block finally the position. From white's point of view, is all right, to block the position, waiting. Normally, by such high level, the position is more or less even, with a small advantage for black, who has initiative and two bishops. But it's very difficult to win, you see. Okay, queen d2. All right, rook e8. And now, what can happen? White is waiting, Black is preparing h5. All right. White waits again. King h7. Again, he's waiting. Okay, he's coming back. He was controlling to see what happens, King g8. Okay, white is waiting. And now, finally, he took in c3. He takes in c3, giving the very strong bishop and accepting such a position who everybody, if you look at the position, everybody can win, you see. Why? Because it's different color bishops, and who takes the initiative here is playing to win the game. All right, black takes in e4, and finally he won a pawn. But it's very difficult to win the game, you see, here. All right, if you look like this, he played bishop h6. Why bishop h6? Because if he had time to take in d6, was all right for white, but he has no time. Because if he plays bishop takes d6, black has time not to take immediately in d5. Okay, it's probably okay, even if he takes. But queen b1 check is very unpleasant. Queen b1 check, and now king g2, and now after king g2, bishop f5, and it's probably winning for black already. If has time to give one check in e4, is decisive. Mating attack, One tempo is enough, is decisive in such a position, All right, so bishop h6 threatens, of course, mate, Bishop h6. And now black is playing. Okay, check. Now queen g6, controlling there. Queen c1. And now, again, queen b1, the best move. Now you have to move something. You can't move the queen, you can't move the bishop. You can't play, for instance, the best idea for white is to move the queen somewhere and put the bishop on the big diagonal. But you have no time, of course. You can't move, only, yourself, and the rest, doesn't make any moves, of course. So, right, white has to move something that has probably to move the king. Okay, he played king f1. Trying to arrive with the king in the safe position, later on. In e3, probably on the black squares somehow, you see. But again, he has no time. Black has the strong initiative here. Time trap, bishop f5. Already the position is very unpleasant for white, and he has to fight to have an even game. But it's very difficult because in such a position with different color bishops, usually the player who has the initiative and who is attacking wins the game, usually, So the game here will be the same. The same thing would happen here, you see. King e2, and here queen e4 check. Queen e3, of course. Queen c2 check, queen d2, and queen b3. All right, and what did he play? Queen d4. Big mistake, queen d4. Queen d4, because he loses control over the squares, over the central squares. And now, very unpleasant, bishop d3 check. And now white is lost. Why? Because if he goes back in e1, he loses at least another pawn, and then the endgame is losing,
He resigned here.
He resigned, because I have no moves. If you go to d2 or to e3, his mate, after king e3, queen d1, attacking the bishop, and mate in e2 or in f3. If you go to d2, you lose at least the bishop after queen e2 check. If you go to b2, again, you are mate,
So here, what is now? Check here?
Yeah.
Okay, you lose the bishop.
Yeah. And
Yes.
okay, Spassky resigned.
But so here was
probably instead of it was difficult to find, but probably the best move was king e1 immediately. But very difficult to find king e1.
King e1.
Yeah, in time trouble, very big time trouble. Because it was move by move, I tell you. You see, because the white's hope is to put the bishop on the diagonal. Threatening something himself.
Yeah.
But it's move by move, and especially in big time trouble, is very difficult to find. It's very unpleasant position. You are under very big pressure, and it's very easy to make a mistake, And any mistake is decisive in one move,
So that was the first victory of Bobby.
The first victory ever,
But not the last.
No, the last. There, finally, the match started in that moment, It was still 2-1 for Spassky. But what happened afterwards was very unpleasant, because between third game and 10th game, yes, Fischer won 5 times.
5 out of 8.
5 out of 8. It was unbelievable, So the match was almost decisive after 10 games, you see.
Out of 22.
Out of 21. They played 21 games. 21. It was like this. The rule was the first who arrives to 12 and a half. 12 and a half won the match. If they had 12-12, Spassky was still world champion. I mean, it was enough. 12-12, even, Mm-hmm. It was always like this. And therefore was very big surprise what happened afterwards, much later, when they wanted to change the rule, for Karpov, and when they took away the title from Fischer, because it was very unfair. Because they changed the rule for nothing. Every match which was played for World Championship was like this. A small advantage for the World Champion by 12-12, but all the matches, starting with Botvinnik and so on, Smyslov and all the rest, Tal and Petrosyan and Spassky and so, the same rule, the same rule. Why change the rule? Mm-hmm. And the last moment also, Mm-hmm. Okay, so Politics. It was like this, yeah. And it was also a very funny moment afterwards. Well, it happened, a lot of time later, Fischer was already the world champion, and we met the last time, unfortunately, in Manila in 1973. He was guest of President Marcos. He was world champion and so, and I took an interview with Bobby. We had already very good relationship. We were, let's say, very good friends. And jokingly like this, I tried to find out after so many years the truth about this match, because everybody was, speaking how and why did he take in H2 and so on, the first match.
Yes, with the bishop.
The first game. And I asked Bobby what happened, after so many years. And okay, he was smiling and he said, okay, we played many times, we know each other very well. So do you think really that I could play such a move,
Such
I
a
had
blunder.
a blackout and, such a mistake. So I said, well, I understand. Well, nobody knows the story. But you wanted to show everybody that you were right in Varna, 10 years ago, when you declared that you were ready to give an advantage for 2 points to the world champion, the Botvinnik, right? Right. And he was smiling like this and said, well, now you understand what happened.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, nobody knows this, but that was the truth. Yeah.
But that was you had a discussion, or you had an interview?
No, I didn't write down an interview because he didn't want to criticize too much Botvinnik and so on. That was between us. Mm-hmm. But okay, it was such a kind discussion, and the rest of the interview you have in these books that I wrote about.
Is the interview there?
Yeah,
In
the
the
interview is
book?
there, of course.
In the book?
But without this,
This
remark
part.
about the match. But that was the truth. Everybody knew the truth afterwards, but okay, it happened.
Of course, after you see these games, cannot be
it
anything
happened.
else.
No, nobody would take in H2. A third category player doesn't take in H2.
Yes,
Bobby
yes.
Fischer. And the funny thing is that they considered that it was real, and they realized even a story, official story, and they made a picture right now in our days about the match from Reykjavik, I don't know, Pawn Sacrifice or something, produced by the Americans, where they analyzed, everything. And if somebody looks at the picture, they have the impression that Fischer was a very, weak player. How can a weak player like this taking H2 and afterwards still win the match?
Yeah.
But okay, now you understand.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. All right. It was late, but, better later than never, to know the truth. But by this very high level, everybody knew the truth already.
Thank you for
You're
sharing
welcome.
with us,
Yes,
Mr. Gheorghiu. Thank you.
No, but it's a pity. It's a pity that something like this could happen,
After,
Yeah,
later.
afterwards, yes, of course.
True.
Yeah. Well, anyway, coming back to our game, that was the first victory ever against Spassky,
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Nice.
In such an important moment. Very good game. Also with some small mistakes, of course, for Spassky and for Fischer. Maybe Spassky overstepped a little bit the limit. I mean, he was a little bit too sure of himself and of the Soviet analysis, G3 was a mistake. Starting with G3, the game was unbalanced a little bit and better for black in any case.
Okay.
The rest was more or less clear,
Nice.
even with small mistakes.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.